For Governor Beavenon?
Yes, Senator.
You were his lawyer?
I was one of the lawyers in the office, Senator.
Okay. Governor Beavenon issued some controversial pardons, is that right?
He did, Senator.
The FBI investigated those pardons, did it not?
Yes, Senator, that's right.
Did the FBI file charges against Governor Beavenon?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, your home for common sense, constitutional commentary, Freedom Forge, and today, wow, do we have a hearing to break down for you. Senator John Kennedy, one of the few real straight shooters left in D.C., absolutely grilled a couple of Biden administration nominees, Mr. Meredith and Mr. Mercer, on everything from the First Amendment to federal overreach to local zoning and even the limits of government power. You're not going to want to miss this, folks. Grab your coffee, smash that like button, and let's get into it.
Mr. Meredith, you worked for Governor Beavenon?
Yes, Senator.
You were his lawyer?
I was one of the lawyers in the office, Senator.
Okay. Governor Beavenon issued some controversial pardons, is that right?
He did, Senator.
The FBI investigated those pardons, did it not?
Yes, Senator, that's right.
Did the FBI file charges against Governor Beavenon?
My understanding is they did not, Senator.
Okay. Did you advise Governor Beavenon on any of those controversial pardons?
The only controversial pardon that that I advised him on was one for Mr. Irvin Edge, and I recommended that Mr. Edge not be pardoned.
And was he pardoned?
My understanding from reading news articles is that he was pardoned.
Okay, so the governor didn't take your advice?
Apparently not, Senator.
Okay. But you didn't have anything to do with any of the other controversial pardons?
No, Senator.
Okay. If the New York Times, Mr. Meredith, published an editorial, let's suppose it said, Senator Kennedy is a bad senator. We don't like him. We think he's an ignorant slut. And I called the New York Times, and I said, okay, I want to write a letter to the editor replying. Can the New York Times tell me no?
I believe that they could tell you no, Senator.
Well, what if I said, if they told me no, I said, okay, I want to buy a full-page ad that says John Kennedy's a good senator. He is not an ignorant slut. And they said no. Can they do that?
I think the First Amendment would allow them to exercise editorial discretion and control over the types of ads they want to sell.
You think it's purely a First Amendment case?
There could be. I mean, I think there are potentially other laws that could govern how they make their decisions to sell ads, but I think if they're making a decision about whether you can buy an ad that says Senator Kennedy's a good senator, I think I think the First Amendment would allow them to exercise.
Suppose I'm running for re-election after this editorial, and I go to my local television station and I say I want to run a political ad. And they say no. The New York Times says you're an ignorant slut. We're not going to run your ad. Can they do that?
I think that's governed. That's governed by different laws pertaining to the airwaves, which are governed by federal statutes.
There's only one Constitution.
That's right.
How can a news organization deny me the right to reply to an editorial that denigrates me? But yet I have a right to run a television ad that says the New York Times is wrong.
I think as in order to have permission to use the airwaves, I think federal law requires TV stations to give equal time or equal opportunity to buy ads.
Why is that constitutional?
Well, it's constitutional because my understanding, at least, is that the federal government controls, it's the airwaves essentially are federal property that the federal government can regulate and authorize the use of.
Yeah, but the federal government has to abide by the First Amendment, doesn't it?
It does,
I don't know.
Senator.
Explain to me how the New York Times can say no to me wanting a right of reply, but a TV station can't prohibit me from replying.
Senator, my understanding of the law is that the airwaves would be a public resource that the federal government regulates.
You think they're a common carrier?
I don't know the law on this specifically, Senator. I don't know that the common carrier analysis would apply there. Perhaps it would. I don't know.
Well, suppose I have my cell phone service with AT&T, and I call AT&T, and I say I want to expand my cell phone service, and they say nope. We read that New York Times article. You can't do it. Can AT&T turn me down?
I think theoretically they probably could.
No. How? Why? What basis?
Well, I take that back. You're right. They probably can't because it's the same thing.
Why?
They're using the airwaves as well.
They're a common carrier, right?
I think that analysis probably applies there. That's right.
Okay. Mr. Mercer, can Congress pass a law that says cities are no longer able to participate in zoning? We're going to take it over at the federal level because we don't have enough houses. Would that be constitutional?
Senator Kennedy, I don't believe it would be.
Why not?
I believe that's the sort of thing that the Constitution has, not given Congress the authority under Article 1 to do that. And in fact,
Why not? On what basis?
in our system of federalism, those things that are not set forth in the Constitution are reserved to the states. And zoning is one of those quintessential public health, safety, welfare matters that we reserve to local government to resolve. And so I don't believe it would be permissible for this body to attempt to codify something in that regard.
So local government would win in that instance.
That is my understanding.
Okay, suppose local government came back and said, not only now that we've won and we have jurisdiction over our own zoning and our own housing laws, if you want to build a new house in our city, the permit is now $50,000. Can they do that?
Senator, essentially, I think the same analysis applies. I think that the local government would have the ability to establish that, and I don't think Congress could overrule it, and I think they would have the inherent authority to do so.
Why isn't that a taking under the United States Constitution and the Fifth Amendment?
Senator, that would be a whole different analysis, but I don't believe.
Same analysis. We just established they have the right to zone as they wish, and so and to regulate local housing. They're doing it. They're saying $50,000 to get a building permit. You're telling me that's constitutional?
Senator, I believe it would be. I think that they could establish that they need, in order to engage in the permitting process and go through what they need to do as a local government. I doubt very much whether that would be a violation under a compensable taking under the Fifth Amendment.
You familiar with Sheets v. County of El Dorado?
Senator, no, I'm not. That is not something that I've encountered in my practice.
The Supreme Court struck down a $23,420 fee for a permit to build a home.
I was not familiar with that precedent, Senator. I'll make sure.
At some point, local government, which has wide discretion when exercising its police power, at some point, their actions can step over the line, can they not?
That is true, Senator. And
violate what? The takings clause?
In this case, I'm not familiar with if Sheets was based upon the Fifth Amendment or if there was some other analysis, but
It was Fifth Amendment.
okay.
First off, let's talk about Mr. Meredith. He used to work for Governor Beavenon, who, surprise, surprise, handed out a bunch of controversial pardons. The left loves to talk about accountability, but when it's their guys, suddenly it's all just controversial and nothing to see here. Now, Senator Kennedy point-blank asks, did you advise the governor on any of those pardons? Meredith says he only advised on one, and even then, he told the governor not to pardon the guy. The governor did it anyway. So what do we learn? Even supposedly ethical lawyers in these Democrat administrations get ignored if it's politically convenient. And of course, the FBI looked into it, but surprise, no charges. Just another day in the swamp. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Kennedy brings up a hypothetical. If the New York Times publishes a hit piece on him, calls him, and I quote, an ignorant slut, can he demand a right to reply? Can he buy an ad defending himself? The answer, no. The so-called paper of record can just shut you down. But if you go to your local TV station, which uses the public airwaves, regulated by the feds, they can't turn you down for a political ad. Why? Because Congress, under federal law, says they have to give equal access. That's the equal time rule. Here's the kicker, folks. The First Amendment is supposed to protect free speech, but in America today, private companies, especially left-wing media, can silence you anytime they want. But if it's federally regulated, suddenly you have rights. That's a dangerous double standard. The left controls the narrative in print and online, but when it comes to the airwaves, something the founders never could have imagined, they have to play fair. The truth is big tech and big media are the new gatekeepers. They hide behind the First Amendment to silence anyone they disagree with. But when the government's involved, suddenly you get a fair shot. That should tell you everything you need to know about who really has power in this country. Kennedy takes it even further. He asks, what if AT&T or any phone company refuses you service because they don't like your politics? At first, the nominee says maybe they could, but then realizes, wait, they're a common carrier. They can't do that. And that's exactly right. For over 100 years, phone companies, railroads, utilities, they're all common carriers. They can't discriminate. You pay, you get the service. Period. I'll tell you what, folks, that's how it should be for social media too. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they're the new public square. They should be treated like common carriers. No more deplatforming. No more censorship. No more shadow banning conservatives, Christians, or anyone who stands up for American values. If you pay for a service, you get to use it, just like everyone else. End of story. Then Kennedy shifts gears and absolutely schools Mr. Mercer on federalism. He asks, can Congress just take over local zoning laws? Mercer says, no, Senator, that's for the states and local governments. And Mercer's right, at least at first. That's the 10th Amendment in action, folks. Anything not specifically given to the feds by the Constitution is reserved to the states and the people. That's the foundation of American liberty. That's what stands between you and a federal government dictating what kind of house you can build, what you can say, how you live your life. But then Kennedy throws a curveball. What if a local government sets the building permit fee at $50,000? Is that constitutional? Mercer says yes, but he's dead wrong. Kennedy cites Sheets versus County of El Dorado, where the Supreme Court, yes, even the current, sometimes squishy Supreme Court, struck down a $23,420 permit fee as an unconstitutional taking. Folks, this is exactly why we need judges and lawyers who know the law and respect the Constitution. Local governments have power, but it's not unlimited. There are lines they can't cross. If they use their police powers to tax you into oblivion, that's not local control, that's tyranny. So what's the lesson here? We need public servants who know the Constitution and will stand up for your rights, not just parrot whatever the D.C. establishment wants to hear. We need judges and lawyers who will push back against government overreach at every level. Senator Kennedy, love him or hate him, is doing the job the American people sent him to do, holding nominees' feet to the fire, making them answer tough questions, and exposing just how little some of these so-called experts actually know about the law. The Constitution isn't just a piece of paper. It's our birthright. It's the only thing standing between you and politicians, left, right, or otherwise, who want to run your life, tell you what to say, and take your hard-earned money. We need more leaders like Senator Kennedy, and we need to keep reminding our so-called public servants that they work for us, not the other way around. All right, that's all for today, folks. If you appreciate honest, no-nonsense analysis, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and share this video with your friends and family, because knowledge is power, and we need more patriots who know the truth. Drop a comment below. Do you trust your local government to respect your rights? Should big tech be treated as common carriers? And what do you think about these nominees' answers? Thanks for watching. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. See you next time.